The first thing I remember is the warning on the wall. Not mine, never mine, scrawled in a shaky hand sometime before I moved in. Don't look into its eyes. It felt like a joke the first week. Old houses have warnings. Old houses have drafts and bad wiring and mice. But the warning sat crooked above the small sash window in the living room as if someone had painted it to bribe the light into staying away. I tell you that because you need to understand how ordinary it all seemed at first. I moved into the cottage in late October. Rent cheap, landlord unreachable. The kind of place where the floorboards sigh if you stand too long. The first night I woke to the house settling, that low, slow groan like a wail, and the smell of wet wood. I remember opening the window to let the damp air out and pressing my forehead to the cold glass while I listened to the road breathe. That's when I felt it, as if the house itself was waiting. Small things began to tilt. My kettle took longer to boil. My phone lost signal sitting by the window and returned some hours later with messages I didn't remember receiving. At first, I blamed exhaustion, the city-tired bones catching up with me. Then came the scratches on the sill, shallow, parallel lines that weren't there in the morning. I ran my thumb along them and tasted iron on my lip like a promise I hadn't agreed to. I don't remember the first time I thought I saw something. Memory has a way of excusing what it cannot hold. I remember instead the sound, a soft, patient tapping, like a tongue tracing the inside of a jar. It came at 3 a.m, a patient pattern that matched the rhythm of my pulse. I lay awake, breath shallow, listening to the world outside make its small, habitual noises, dogs, a distant engine, while the tapping grew clearer, closer, impossibly deliberate. When I slipped from bed and padded to the living room, the floor complained under my feet. The light from the street split across the curtains and left the window a black square. There was something there, half hidden by the sash, pressed against the glass as if it were simply curious about the shapes inside. It had no hair, the skin a thin, stained parchment stretched across cheekbones that belonged to no living face I knew. The eyes, God, the eyes, were not eyes at all, but 2 pale coins set too deep, reflecting nothing. The mouth was a cut made for smiling. I didn't look. I remembered the warning. But memory is brittle. It deserts you when your throat tightens. I found I was already looking anyway, caught between rational fear and a terrible private fascination. The window pane trembled with the warmth of another breath. My own reflection backed away from me like I was a stranger. The house held its breath, and whatever was outside tasted the night. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak, every groan of the wood sounded like footsteps pacing just outside the walls. By morning, my eyes burned from exhaustion, but I convinced myself it had been a dream, a trick of my mind, molded by the warning painted above the window. People see what they expect to see. That's what I told myself. But the scratches on the sill were deeper now, fresh. That day, I tried to call the landlord again. No answer. The number rang and rang until it folded into silence. I even walked down the dirt road to the next house. But it was empty. Windows boarded. Mail piled at the door. It felt like I'd stepped into a place that had been quietly erased. When I came back, the air inside was colder, as if someone had opened every window while I was gone. I checked each one, but they were all locked. Still, the curtains in the living room moved gently, though there was no wind. The tapping began again, slow, deliberate, the same rhythm as the night before. This time, I didn't move toward it. I sat on the floor, across the room, trying to breathe as the sound persisted. Then came a voice, faint, almost tender, whispering through the glass. "You already looked." The words were barely there, but they slid under my skin like needles. My stomach turned to ice. I wanted to run, but something heavier than fear kept me there. My body felt wrong, distant, as if I was watching myself from outside. Through the same window, it was standing behind. I remember crawling to my bedroom and locking the door, pressing my back to it like a child. The house felt alive now, humming softly, its bones vibrating with a low electric pulse. I turned on my phone's flashlight and aimed it at the mirror. My reflection was trembling, and yet, my eyes, looked wrong, pale, faded. That night, I dreamt of standing in front of the window again. Only this time, I was outside, looking in, watching myself sleep, and behind me, just over my shoulder, something leaned closer, a face stretched into a grin too wide, too knowing. Its skin whispered as it moved, like dry paper tearing. I woke up choking on air, the smell of damp earth and rot in my lungs. The window was open. The warning on the wall was gone. Only a single phrase had been carved into the wood above my bed, shallow, trembling lines that looked like they were written from the inside of a shaking hand. "It's learning your eyes." The tapping started before dawn, but that day it was a drum inside my skull as well as on the glass. I could feel the rhythm in my molars, a patient insistence that did not belong to any human clock. I packed a bag on autopilot, phone, wallet, a photograph of my sister I kept folded in my wallet like a talisman, and I told myself I was leaving for good. The road out of town is a thin thing, a strip of blind pavement that swallows sound. I thought of it like a spine I could slide down to freedom. The front door stuck. The knob turned and then stuttered like a cough. When it finally opened, a breath of cold air rolled in that smelled of old cellars and riverweed, and my throat tightened as if I'd breathed someone else's winter. I shoved through, and the porch light blinked and went out. I ran, the board beneath my foot, a single long note that complained and then went quiet. Halfway down the lane, I stopped because the house, which should have been behind me like a fact, was not where I remembered it. Windows dark and blank, its silhouette softened, the small square of the living room sash window glowing with a dim inner light like a watchful pupil. I understood then, with the slow clarity of a fever, that I had not been running from it. I had been running toward an arrangement it wanted. The light in the window flicked on, and there I was. Not in my body, but in the room, seen from the wrong side. My own face leaned close to the glass, exactly as I would have if I were spying from outside. Only the eyes were wrong, coin pale, reflective, alive with a terrible inward sheen. And the smile stretched wider than possibility, teeth too clean, a grin arranged like a doorframe. It lifted a hand and tapped the glass once, the same rhythm that had haunted me for nights, and in the sound there was my own voice, warped and patient. "You left the light on," it said in my voice, and the syllables fell like keys clicking into a lock. My legs gave out, and I dropped to the road. The air around me tasted of iron and old paper. My fingers were trembling so hard they could not arrange the photograph in my wallet. I crawled to the window and pressed my face to the cool pane. For a breathless second, I imagined I could see two versions of me, one inside breathing, one outside choking on the night. The glass fogged where our breaths met, and the condensation ran down like little rivers of memory. Then the thing inside smiled and blinked, and the blink was mine. My stomach turned over. A hollow tug pulled at my chest as if someone had threaded a line through me and was now drawing me out. I felt warmth where cold should have been, a spreading, invasive warmth, and the world tilted, not with motion but with intent. Sound ceased to have edges. My tongue tasted of my own name and something else, older and root sour. There was a sound like fabric being folded. I understood, with the last small mercy of clarity, what it had learned. Not just my eyes, but the way I looked, the small human cadence of my fear. And then I realized with a cold, bright pain that the thing in the window had finished making a decision. I don't know how long I watched it watch me before the skin along my arms went numb and the photograph slipped from my fingers. What I know is this: when I stepped back, the eyes in the glass did not move with me. They stayed and watched the empty road, and the smile did not fade. Now it's looking out with my eyes.
Subscribe to Horror Story Bar.